Mercedes didn't get caught with a smoking gun, but they absolutely got caught with something that made the entire paddock stop and stare. After China, footage of Kimi Antonelli's front wing showed it closing in two separate stages under braking. Rivals started asking questions, the FIA got involved, and Ferrari were already breathing down Mercedes' neck. In Formula One, that's all it takes. Let me explain exactly what happened. The whole thing exploded after the Chinese Grand Prix. Mercedes had already opened 2026 in brutal form. George Russell won in Australia. Then in Shanghai, Antonelli took his maiden victory as Mercedes locked out another 1-2 on Sunday. Ferrari were close enough early on to make it look like a fight, but not close enough when it mattered. That's what made the footage so explosive. As Antonelli braked at the end of the straight, his front wing didn't seem to snap back into corner mode in one clean movement. It looked like it hesitated, then moved again. And under the 2026 active-aero rules, that instantly raises eyebrows. Sky Sports reported that the transition between the wing's straight-line mode and braking phase is meant to happen in no more than 0.4 seconds. But on the video, Antonelli's wing seemed to be outside that window. One unnamed team raised the issue with the FIA. Ferrari denied being the team behind the query, but the suspicion was already out there. And once suspicion hits the paddock, it spreads fast. George Russell tried to shut it down before Japan. He said, "It wasn't intentional, and I don't think it's not an advantage for sure. It's actually a problem." He went even further. "When we brake, the front wing is still open. That's not the sort of line you use if you think you found a genius loophole. That's the sort of line you use when you know the cameras have already found you. Here's why this mattered so much." Ferrari had reason to be frustrated already. Formula1.com's debrief on China made it clear that the Scuderia were in the fight for more than half the race. It took until lap 29 for Russell to get properly established in second ahead of the Ferraris. But only 14 laps later, Lewis Hamilton was more than 20 seconds behind Antonelli and 13 seconds behind Russell. So Ferrari could feel Mercedes. They just couldn't stay there. That creates the perfect storm. When one team is clearly faster over a race distance and then video emerges of a wing behaving strangely, every rival starts thinking the same thing. What exactly are they doing? Is it legal? Is it clever? Or is it one of those classic F1 grey areas where the answer depends on which team you ask? Now pay attention to this, because this is where the story goes from drama to pure technical warfare. The 2026 cars are built around active aerodynamics. That means the front and rear wings don't just sit there, they change state. On the straights, they open into straight-line mode to cut drag. Then when the driver hits the brakes, they're supposed to return quickly so the car regains stability and front-end bite for the corner. Simple in theory, brutal in practice. Think of it like an aircraft flap that has to switch position at exactly the right moment. Too early and you lose straight-line speed. Too late and the car arrives at the corner with the wrong balance. At 330 km per hour, that's not a tiny issue. That's massive. So why did rivals care so much about Antonelli's wing? Because if a team could somehow keep the wing open fractionally longer on the straight, then still get enough rotation for the corner, that would be free lap time. Tiny on paper, huge over a lap, and devastating across a race stint. In a season where margins are already microscopic, that's gold dust. That's why the two-phase movement looked so suspicious. It created the impression of a third state. Not fully straight-line mode, not fully corner mode, something in between. And if that had been intentional, Mercedes would have been playing with the exact spirit of the regulations. But Motorsport.com and Autosport both reported that Mercedes told the FIA this was not some hidden exploit. Their explanation was much less glamorous, a reliability issue. More specifically, a likely lack of hydraulic pressure preventing the wing from returning cleanly to its proper position. And if that explanation is true, it actually makes a lot of sense. An active aero system relies on timing, pressure, and repeatability. If hydraulic pressure drops at the wrong moment, the mechanism may not move in one smooth hit. It can lag, it can pause, it can complete the motion late, and that's exactly what people thought they saw on Antonelli's car. The really important detail is what the FIA believed. According to Motorsport.com and Autosport, the FIA accepted Mercedes' explanation, and not just because Mercedes said so. The governing body reportedly saw the issue as a performance drain rather than a performance trick. Why? Because if the wing is still partly open while the driver is braking, it upsets the car's aero balance right at corner entry. That's where Russell's quote becomes crucial. He said Antonelli's late race lockup may even have been linked to the front wing still being open under braking. That's not a benefit. That's a headache. That's a car arriving at the most sensitive phase of the corner with the wrong front end load. So no, Mercedes were not officially found guilty of cheating. But here's the thing. In Formula One, being cleared is not the same as being trusted. Not even close. The moment rivals see something odd, the political game begins. Cameras come out. Slow-motion footage gets studied frame by frame. Engineers start asking what could be happening. Lawyers read the wording. Team bosses start talking about integrity, transparency, and the spirit of the rules. You know exactly where this goes. And George Russell knew it too. He fired back hard. "We have worked so hard to get ourselves in this position," he said. Then came the killer line. "Just because we're sort of back on top, I don't think it's quite right. Everybody's trying to slow us down." That tells you everything about the mood inside Mercedes. They believe this isn't really about one front wing movement. They believe it's about the rest of the grid panicking because Mercedes hit the ground, running under the new rules. 4 Grand Prix wins from 4 Sundays. Antonelli now with 3 victories. Mercedes right back where they always wanted to be. And now the knives are out. But it gets even more interesting when you look at Ferrari. Because Ferrari were not exactly operating in a clean, boring, controversy-free world themselves. Far from it. During the same China weekend, the race reported that Ferrari removed its new Halo mini winglets after talks with the FIA. Those parts had run in practice and passed scrutineering for the sprint segment. But Ferrari took them off on Saturday after concerns about legality and possible protests. A senior Ferrari source reportedly described the pieces as borderline in the rules. That is pure F1. Ferrari arrived with clever aero ideas. Mercedes arrived with a dominant car. Everyone was looking at everyone else. And suddenly, the weekend turned into one giant technical surveillance operation. The race said Ferrari felt the winglets weren't worth the distraction or the risk of post-race trouble for a gain worth only a few hundredths. The legality debate centered around Article C13.3, which allows a fairing to be attached to the Halo's secondary roll structure inside a tightly defined legality box. If that sounds familiar, it should. Ferrari have been here before. In 2018, they pushed Halo-mounted aero tricks with mirrors and fins until the FIA shut that interpretation down. So when China 2026 brought another Halo debate, people in the paddock instantly remembered the old playbook. And that's why this Mercedes story got hotter. Because Ferrari weren't just chasing Mercedes on pace. They were also chasing them politically. Not necessarily through an official protest in this specific case, because Ferrari denied being behind the FIA query, but through pressure, through scrutiny. Through the normal F1 game of making life uncomfortable for the team in front. There's another layer too. Ferrari don't just think Mercedes have a chassis advantage. The race reported that Ferrari believe Mercedes may be holding back part of its power unit potential ahead of the ADUO checkpoints. That's the additional development and upgrade opportunity system built into the 2026 engine rules. This part is huge. If a manufacturer is more than 2% behind the best internal combustion engine, it can get upgrade opportunities. Ferrari are believed to think Mercedes have such a strong engine that the silver arrows could influence the whole balance of who gets help and who doesn't. The race reported Ferrari estimate their own power unit is at least 15 bhp down on Mercedes. Let that sink in. So from Ferrari's point of view, the frustration isn't just one wing clip from China, it's the entire picture. Mercedes are fast in a straight line, strong in energy management, cleaner over a race distance. And when strange footage appears, you better believe rivals will ask questions. Ferrari's response since then has been aggressive. Autosport reported that Ferrari went back to work after China trying to optimize the SF26's energy distribution, especially through slower sections and transitions. The so-called Macarena wing remained in development. The Halo concept could return in revised form. And Hamilton himself said after qualifying in China, "We have improved the car a tiny bit. We made a step forward." That was an honest quote. But it also revealed the problem. Ferrari had made progress, yet Hamilton still admitted these guys are going to be rapid in the race. He was talking about Mercedes, and that's exactly what happened. Now fast forward to the newest part of this story, because this is why the topic is exploding again right now. Canada is coming. Mercedes are still the benchmark. Antonelli opened up a 20-point championship lead after Miami. Formula1.com says Mercedes are expected to bring more upgrades to Montreal after only adding a few components in Miami. And the rest of the grid are not sitting still. Miami was a warning shot. Sky Sports reported that Ferrari brought 11 new parts there. Mercedes brought only 2. Leclerc topped practice with a 129.310, almost 3/10 clear of Verstappen, while Hamilton was less than half a second off his teammate. Mercedes even had power unit trouble, with Russell reporting a strange turbo noise and Antonelli unable to complete a soft tyre run in practice. And still Antonelli won on Sunday. That's why the fear around Mercedes hasn't gone away. Even when they look vulnerable, they still end up collecting the trophies. Andrea Stella put it perfectly after Miami. He said McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull had closed the gap, but added that Mercedes still possessed a couple of tenths advantage on anybody else. Fred Vasseur said Ferrari's upgrades worked as expected, but consistency remained the issue. Toto Wolff, meanwhile, was already warning that ADUO must be used to help teams catch up, but not to leapfrog. That is not normal mid-season talk. That is a paddock preparing for war. And here's what happens next. The FIA have already accepted Mercedes' explanation on the China wing issue, so don't expect a retroactive bombshell penalty. That part is done, but the surveillance absolutely does not stop. If anything, it gets worse now. Every rival will keep filming that Mercedes wing. Every engineer will keep checking whether the motion is clean. Every suspicious clip will get replayed in slow motion. Because once a team becomes the benchmark, it loses the right to move strangely in public. At the same time, Ferrari will keep pushing on two fronts. 1. Close the pace gap through aero and energy deployment. 2. Keep maximum pressure on the FIA over anything that looks remotely grey. That's not bitterness. That's Formula One. And remember, Mercedes are not only defending a car, they're defending an entire competitive advantage. Wolff said the team are still a bit bruised from the difficult years, and now that they've won 4 races, the reward is obvious. But so is the target on their back. So if you ask me, here's the verdict. Mercedes were not caught cheating. They were caught looking suspicious. That's different. The FIA believed the team because the issue made technical sense as a reliability problem and not a clever gain. But in this sport, suspicion never really disappears. It just waits for the next camera angle. And mark my words, if Mercedes keep winning in Canada, and if Ferrari still can't turn upgrades into race-winning pace, this story will get louder, not quieter. Because the second rivals believe a dominant team might be living in the grey area, every tiny movement on that car becomes a headline. So what do you think? Was the China wing clip just a genuine reliability issue, or did Mercedes expose a grey area the rest of the grid still doesn't understand? Drop your verdict in the comments, subscribe for more F1 breakdowns like this, and stay tuned, because the Canada upgrade battle could decide whether this turns into a title fight or a full-blown technical war.